It started.
Good evening, everyone. We'll begin in the next 1 to 2 minutes. We're waiting for more participants to join in. All right, so we'll begin. We have more participants joining us, but in the interest of time, we know that it's a Monday night and all of you have come back from work. So we'll start the session. So welcome to our webinar on why women should invest in themselves with Meghna, Sahai, Jaruhar, and Divya Gupta. And in today's session, we will be having a conversation on the different different research and report insights led by Meghna, what's happening in the industry, and just generally trying to learn from how women are investing in their careers. We also have a very interesting offering for you from the Harappa School of Leadership. So we'll be talking about this program a little towards the end. So welcome Meghna and Divya for joining us.
Hi.
Thank you. Just a little bit introduction about both Meghna and Divya. So Meghna Sahai heads the Harappa Insights and is doing some really compelling research work with our Harappa team around working professionals in their early career mid-management roles and even stepping into leadership. Her interest in DEI&B has also led her to taking on the role as practice lead of DEI&B at Harappa, and she's at the cross section of both these roles that she's found an authentic voice that she could use. Deriving motivation from business, impact, creative thinking, and social change, Meghna hopes to continue to deepen her understanding and influence the world around her. Welcome, Meghna.
Thank you. Hi.
Divya is a corporate and M&A lawyer who's worked with tier 1 law firms such as Khaitan and Company, Shardul, Amarchand Mangaldas, and many more. She's experienced in cross-border M&A transactions and handling marquee clients like Dalmia Bharat Group, Salesforce, and Paytm. Divya founded a startup, The Dialogue Room, in 2019, which is a modern media platform providing knowledge of experts directly by experts. Her podcast, Dialogue Now, has over 2 lakhs listeners and is part of India's top 100 business podcasts. She's interviewed and moderated talks with founders, CXOs of Urban Clap, Nourish Organics, LBB, Uber, and other marquee companies. Today at Harappa, as the faculty in residence, Divya is working closely with L&D teams to create more impactful learning programs for upskilling talent across all career levels. Thank you for joining us, Divya.
Thanks. Hi.
Great. So, just to get started, Meghna, in your current work at Harappa, you'd love to learn, through the research for many programs, particularly for women in the workforce. What are some 3 shocking data points, that have stood out for you?
So, thanks.
it's shocking or it's heartening, but these are certainly some standout pieces of inquiry that we've had. The first one is when you look at women, working women, we've just recently done a lot of studies, and we've got a really large data set on them. And the one very heartening fact that's come out is that ambition is not in question at all. When we look at women professionals, there is no question that they have a lot of ambition, and they really define it in the expected ways, where about 82% of them really look at career advancement as the main criteria for them to say, okay, yes, I'm moving up the ladder, and I'm moving on my ambition. And very close to that, about 78% of them look at compensation, or how they're being compensated, as the second marker of success. So I think that was very heartening to see, and to see numbers behind these very very tangible markers around success. But there is a pitfall that one has to look at, and that is around what promotion means. And there is a pitfall where more women get promoted horizontally rather than vertically, and which is to say that their role expands rather than their title getting bumped up. And I think there is a pitfall there, because then it's a longer route to that top job. So one should be really careful about that. But then we've also done research which is gender agnostic. And I think the third one I'd pull out is from that, which is when we look at managers, mid-career people, there are 2-3 standout skills that we must have. And I think that would be of interest to the group that we're talking to. And one of those standout skills is the ability to collaborate and to work collaboratively, which means that you need to, move through difficult conversations, move through, negotiating or networking with various people, navigating the workplace or external stakeholders. The second one is about taking ownership, which is about leading yourself, leading your teams, having clarity of the end game. And the third one, it's two-sided. It's somewhat around communication, of course, but also managing different parts of a project and making it come together. So you becoming that, central force or that bridge that really brings everything together. So these are 3 sets of skills that are very required for mid-career professionals to have. So I would say these 3 have been really good standout bits of information that we've been able to collect and verify.
Great, thanks, Meghna. So I think this question is for both, Meghna and Divya. You've been at different stages of your career as well, based on your personal experiences, as well as, with working with women through different training programs, what are the 3 things that you've seen work out really well for you to help you accelerate your career or move closer towards your career goals?
Meghna, should I take a stab at this? I think I don't firstly want to give a number to it. I think there are multiple things that people have to do, and what I've done may not be as relevant to Meghna or someone else, but I think largely what I've seen that's really helped me is to be extremely authentic to the person I am today at the workplace. I think I wasn't like that at my previous law firms. I was trying to fix or, put myself in a bubble of what a typical lawyer needs to do and has to behave and call everyone sir and stay, late at the office and showcase XYZ. And I didn't showcase my true abilities, which was that I was a really good communicator, really good negotiator. And I was like, oh, they will never allow an associate in front of a client so early on. So I really hid my authentic key skills. And I think the more I just finally showcased the person I am and the key skills I have, the right jobs kind of opened up to me even within Harappa. Even within Harappa, I started in marketing and I realized probably that's not what is for me, but I got slotted in that because maybe I was trying to portray something else about me. So the day you very authentically understand what your key skills are, and for someone that could be data, for someone else that could be something completely different, it'll be easier to find that true path for yourself within the company or within just the corporate workplace. Second is, I think, just kind of not saying please and sorry and just overly kind of being nice overtly at the workplace. That's something I've again learned over the years. And I think it's very important to pick up earlier on, be it in front of seniors, and, be it like you're constantly kind of overdoing the niceness, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to bring this very nice version of myself to work. No, I think today also just something happened, and a male colleague went like, oh, I saw you in a session today and you were just such a different version, and you were so like, you're not like that at work. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be this happy-go-lucky, always put a smile. You're come to work, and please come for work and do your best at work. And of course, if you happen to make friends and have a tribe, that's a plus. But first, you have to do your work and not be handing out cutting cake for everyone whose birthday it is and giving the cake pieces to everyone. I think second is that. And third, I would just say is probably respect yourself and your colleagues. Patience is something I've learned very late on in my career. I wish I was a more patient person. You have to give the respect and patience to a second or a third person. You don't know what they're going through. You have to give them the benefit of the doubt. This is not your home. This is your work. And you have to treat people like that, and treat people with equally, with equity, and with respect. So I think these three things are something that's really helped me hone into a leader that I want to see myself as.
I have a follow-up question, if I may ask, Meghna, before I come to you. So, Divya, I've had the opportunity to work with, at different stages of my career. I've worked with applicants who are applying for B schools as a career coach, and I've had the opportunity of working with students in B schools as well, and in other programs in college and university. And I've also had an opportunity to work with working professionals. And I think one thing that really stood out to me is, really understanding oneself better. And I've seen and observed that, at different stages of a career, we need, someone to help us, understand ourselves better. We need some tools. What are some things that have worked well for you? You've mentioned that, communication was a key skill. And, the system probably didn't allow you to unleash your full potential. What were some tools and what were some, methods that you used to understand and identify this as a skill? Because, some of us would still struggle with identification.
Yeah.
So what are some of your suggestions there?
Honestly, I'm a little old school. I've done a lot of these assessments and tests that tell you what your skill sets are as well, and what kind of a person you are. And I think for me, coaching and those kind of old school techniques where you work alongside, and I know even in the AMP course, you have a career track, you have a coach who will actually help you identify these skill sets and all. I think sometimes knowing it from another person, because you may not know your blind spots or your skill sets or strengths as easily as someone else would pick up. I think there were a lot of people around Harappa who went like, you're a really good communicator. Have you thought of faculty in residence? And it came from people around me. So I'm very old school in the sense that I think a coach, a senior, a colleague, a mentor would be able to identify these kind of skills for me. And me personally, I love doing a lot of these personality assessment tests, and I've done a whole bunch of them. And they always do come up with very similar things about me. So maybe there's something to it.
Great, thank you. So Meghna, would love to learn from your experience of what are some things that helped you, advance your career from where you were and where you are now, or where you want to be next.
Great. So, I'll just give a small anecdote. The fact is that I started working very early. I was very young. I don't even think I was 20 when I started working. And so I've been through that whole cycle of really working for the heck of it, not really knowing or even caring where it was going, to a point where I realized that was helping nobody. It was not even helping the organization I was working really hard for, but not really towards anything. And it certainly wasn't helping me. So I think whether it's the long-term goal or just about a project, knowing your end game and having clarity of the project outcome or your career outcome, where, a midpoint, that clarity, some definition of what you're doing is very, very important. So even when you're talking about what do you want to do right after the AMP, or what do you want to see yourself in a year after this is done, having some roadmap that's somewhat charted. Of course, if nothing goes exactly as per plan, having that in mind is very good, because then you're more sure-footed towards it. The second part to that is you may not have all the answers. Hence, you have to have no shame in asking for help. Whether it's at the workplace or in a program like this, you need to put your hand up, ask the questions, and you will end up actually doing a lot of people favors, because they will not be asking those questions for the same reason that you're hesitating. So I think those two things have really helped me. The third one, and this again comes down to the woman factor, is that really own your ambition. You have to really, at least to yourself, you have to say, hey, I want to be earning that big pay package. That's the best in class. And I want to be doing it by such and such date. Right. So you have to own your ambition. Or is it about, I want to be heading this department, or I want to be making this kind of impact and change in the world? Whatever your ambition is, own it, articulate it, and then start working towards it. So I would say these 3-4 things are what's really, really important.
Thanks, Meghna. I think I'm personally taking back, the first point. I think it really is resonating with me on career discovery. And I think, with the accelerated management program, that Harappa School of Leadership offers, there are different courses in business, business strategy, business operations, business finance, economics, and then there are other concepts like product, data, marketing, and leadership. Right. So I think it really provides an avenue for working professionals to really discover and explore other subjects, from pracademicians. We call them practitioners and academicians. We try to bring the best of both worlds. People who've been there, done that, taught in top business schools, or have been advising startups and large corporations. And I think getting that opportunity to explore so many different career options and subjects and knowledge, at 1/15th the cost of a full-time MBA residential program, is something that's been very, very powerful. I've personally been part of the first cohort of the accelerated management program, and I think it's been very exciting. All right, thank you. So moving on, Divya, the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Embrace Equity. And we know that you've been gathering a lot of insights and information on what are some of the equity and current trends. It would be nice to have you, shed some light on some current trends for this year. And we'll take this conversation about, how can we build allies, and, what are some of the biases and stereotypes that affect us due to a social condition.
Thanks, Tanvi. I think each year they come up with a different topic, and this is a very, very important topic. They call it Embracing Equity, and the signage that's going with it is kind of you hug yourself, so you're embracing it. I think a lot of people don't know how to differentiate truly between equality and equity. And at its core, equality is that you just feel equality means every individual should be given same resources and opportunities, right? Sounds obvious. But equity actually goes one step further, and it will kind of recognize that, but everyone has different circumstances, and the exact same resources and opportunities can't apply to them, right? So you can give everyone in your company an opportunity to work with the best client that requires late night at a particular office. But equity is to recognize that maybe a woman will not be able to work that late night. And so there are different versions of it, but I just feel like in terms of stats, I think India is a developing country. There's no doubt to kind of accepting that and acknowledging that. While I think things are definitely getting better by each decade, as we see what it was in terms of our mother's environment, there's a lot that's moved in to making the workplace more equitable. But at the same point, for every 100 male, men managers who get promoted, there are only 84 women. There are only around 7 to 8% CXOs of women in the world. So it's the statistics are kind of disheartening, but I do feel the right kind of noise is being made. And I think it is, each year I have seen some sense of improvement. I think we come from a place of privilege that the three of us are sitting here and being able to discuss this. And I think we need to acknowledge that privilege too. But I think, as in terms of just speaking on the corporate workplace, I think if you upskill yourself and go through the, what you need to go through, I think there's no reason to kind of not be able to get yourself into a very equitable workplace. I do want to hear Meghna's thoughts on this as well, because I know she's done a lot of research.
Thanks. No, you're absolutely right, Divya, that there is a difference between equality and equity, and sometimes that gets lost in just the noise that, oh, we're now treating you as equals, and that's not enough. And it's the empathy that we need to sort of have for other people's lived experience that will start with, of course, women, but actually then extends to every different difficult circumstance, which is not a gendered problem. Different people will have different problems coming up at different times. So embracing equity is actually it's going to help everybody. That's my one take on it. The second thing, which Divya, you said, is that I think very slowly and surely, but it is getting better. You're absolutely right. The conversations that we're having with different organizations, there is a mixed bag of those who are doing some tick in the box things around not just Women's Day, but across this topic and this mandate, and others who are really making very conscious and concentrated efforts and determined steps around it. And I think that balance is shifting slightly. So I would say that, yes, it's about being cautiously optimistic already. And I feel like I'm slightly militant when it comes to these things. So I do feel that women who do have the awareness, they also have the responsibility, as you spoke about privilege, for instance, to then say that, no, I think this is what I deserve. And no, I think this is what I am capable of doing. And this is what I want to do. Because I think seeing somebody climb up, let's talk about corporate because that's what we're talking about. If you see people climb up, a woman climb up the ladder, if you see someone getting successful, the aspirational trickle effect of that is phenomenal. And I think you have to, it's very difficult to measure, but it's absolutely phenomenal. I suffered from it. I suffered from the fact that I didn't have a woman leader to look up to in the beginnings of my career. So I know that it would have, I would, benefit, I would have benefited and had that not been the case when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, sorry, I just want to add a point that you're absolutely right. Be it the AMP right now, the program being helmed by women, be it Shreyasi at Harappa, I think it makes a very stark difference in people who are in the Harappa ecosystem, be it our learners or be it, people like us who are working there. I feel you just see it. You're not apologetic about it. You, at some point, we don't even get to talk or feel the gender debate as much as it's probably there in other organizations, because you're seeing these incredible women being part of our learners and cohort and teaching the right courses and just being at the helm of it all. And sometimes I think we just have to give kudos to all of us for that too.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Divya. So I think on this note, we have a very interesting question, and I think Divya, this is based on the discussion we were having about building a tribe. There's an anonymous question on that you've mentioned having a tribe at work, which can help you and be with you in what you do. As a woman, how do you find and create such a tribe, and what kind of efforts go into creating this tribe at your workplace?
Okay, so just to start off, it's not easy. There's no 7-step plan, unfortunately, that I can give you. Ki go on LinkedIn and say hi to these 7 people and one will respond and you'll. I think it ties back to what I said the first time, that you have to be authentic. When you're authentic, you will attract your authentic tribe, because there's no point having these people in your life as a good to have. You have your family for that. But if you need people who will support you and who'll uplift you at the right time, or who, if You need someone, say if Meghna is in a meeting of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm painting a theoretical a picture here, and something in the opportunity of the space comes up. My tribe should be such that if Meghna is part of my tribe, she remembers that Divya is very interested in diversity, equity, inclusion. She'll be great at this project, and we should talk to her about it. That's the level your tribe needs to be there for you and standing up for you. And that can only happen if Meghna knew that I like DEIB, or I'm truly invested in it. And she would only know these things about me if I'm authentic. So the one tip that I'll just give is, I've been at Harappa 2 years, and I've probably now I can pinpoint 5 to 6 people who are my tribe, is talk to a lot of people. Don't seclude yourself from talking to some certain sets or hanging out with some certain people, because you just don't know who you'll click with. Be open-minded, talk to people, and then see from whom the authenticity is coming and to whom you can really give something to and possibly even take back. It has to be kind of a give and take. At least that's my viewpoint. Meghna, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I want to say that I read that question while we were discussing something else. And I was thinking that, the workplace tribe that you make, it is a fine line between social and professional. You have to authentically like the people that you're building this tribe with or building this network with, but you also have to actually not just talk about, oh, the weather's great and where did you go out last weekend. You have to start talking about your aspiration, what kind of areas interest you, what is the work that you're doing right now, what is the business problem you're trying to solve. Start talking about these things so that that information is available to each other. And hence, so you have to sort of see your workplace colleagues as different from your friends, but also different from just a strategic connection that you're making. So I think it's somewhere in the middle of that. And if you can stay authentic, as Divya said, as the core of the whole thing, you've got the right steps towards it. And you may not make your tribe in the first attempt that you do, or in the first organization you try it at, but it will then start building, and you might, start rallying those people around you.
Thanks. I think I'm just reflecting on, this aspect of networking. Like, what does networking really mean to us? Like, consider to 10 years or a decade back, there are technology is advanced so much, and there's access to so many more platforms, professional platforms and networking events. How have you seen, different programs at the Harappa School of Leadership really help people build great networks? And what outside of these, cohort-based programs do people do to build that deeper relationship that is authentic, but as well as, is not too straightforward, that it's for, some give and take, or it's a give and take relationship. How to really find and build network outside of a learning program as well. What's your take on this?
So a couple of things I would say, and I think I've been, of course, watching the first 2 cohorts of AMP, and the efforts even the team has taken to try and nurture those connects that are getting made. So kudos to you guys for that, and also to those participants who've come in and made those. And I can see, I just saw a post, in fact, today, where 3 of the students got together and took a quick selfie in Indus and all that. So I think that's already happening. And I think that shared experience that AMP is enabling for them, where it's live, even if it's virtual, or they're getting these times to connect, that of course is like it's like a source code. It's a great way to sort of maybe start with some figuring out what are your common grounds, and then kind of take it forward from there. How do you maintain it is to each their own, because even my reasons to connect with a Divya will be very different from my reasons to connect with a Tanvi. And my reasons to reach out to Divya for some problem solution might be different from me wanting to reach out to you, Tanvi, for making a connection for me or helping me solve a, getting me introduced to somebody, right? So you will have to figure out where each person's strengths lies and where your strength lie. It has to be a win-win situation. And I'm not meaning that in a negotiation sort of way, but in fact, I have seen from our enterprise sales team, for instance, some of the people have, clients call them for advice on something which is completely different from the realm of Harappa, and our enterprise sales people have gone out of their way and helped them or advised them on that. That's how you build trust. That's how you build a connection which is over and above just the transaction of it. So you sort of have to go beyond being transactional, and once you do that a few times, then you might feel open enough to say, hey, I had some advice I needed to ask you as well. Or I had a connection I was hoping you can make for me as well. So it has to be something where you're willing to give as much as you're willing to take.
I think I'll just add on +1 to that. I think the accelerated management program that ways is I think sometimes anything that starts new and fresh with creative inputs and ideas, you put that much effort into it. So, the first 10, 15, 20 cohorts will be that much special, and nobody can take that away from actually a new setup. It is the way it is. I'm sure the first class of Harvard felt like that. So will the first class of AMP. You've seen this happen between them and amongst them, right? Be it their shared experiences. And I think the second thing is the cohort that you're picking is so beautifully handpicked, and each person is bringing something to the table. So you're already kind of ensuring that the people who you're, going to be spending so many months with are already at that level that you want them to be part of your network, right? You're already going into this that, oh, amazing. Of course, the teacher and the faculty is going to teach me a lot, but hey, what am I going to learn with my cohort? Because each of them will bring something to the table, because right now they are being handpicked by, each of you. And second, like as Meghna said, something that's worked particularly for me is I am very unabashedly unashamed to kind of tap into my network over and over again and even be persistent. I think you need to not take it personally. This is not a partner, someone at home, or someone who's just, or a friend who's not responding to you and you're like, oh, what happened? I think you need to give due credit that the people you're trying to create a network with are busy too, especially if they are busy professionals and you want something from them. In fact, very recently, I was trying to reach out to a partner at a venture capital fund, and they didn't respond to me for a couple of days, and I followed back. And I actually got a very sweet message going, thank you so much for following back, because I was traveling and it completely, slipped out of my mind and I would have not responded to you. So I think it's just really important to know when you do want something, you kind of ask for it. And it ties back to what even Meghna says, ask for help, ask for that connection, be authentic, and kind of just put yourself out there. The worst that'll happen is they'll say, sorry, we don't have time. I mean, and it's fine. You were already there at that space.
Absolutely. I think I was just reflecting on, building networks through an online program. And I think I've personally, also been part of so many online programs since 2020. Just in my pursuit of being a lifelong learner. And I think one thing that I've seen work really well with these Harappa programs is that there's really the sense of community, which and some shared experience and shared knowledge, shared projects, and shared feedback for cohorts and for groups to work together on. I think that's really stood out. I think like two highlights personally for me, like from the first cohort, we have a community on these leadership talks, which is completely run by the cohort. And I think every Saturday there's a conversation and there's a podcast style interview, with the participants. With the second cohort, I think there's this, this newsletter series that have begun, newsletters that are completely created by the cohort members, for the cohort members, for their learning and sharing. So I think the beauty of having such a program that allows to create shared experiences and do things together is something that really helps build those connects beyond that transaction of just learning on the on during classes. And I think we've seen that work out really beautifully through our cohorts. So just wanted to share that.
That's amazing. Thanks for telling us that too.
Yeah, we have one more question on equity versus equality. Could you share some insights on roles that organizations play in creating equitable opportunities at the workplace? My question is whether such values of equity come from leaders of organizations, its employees, investors, or even or everyone in some degree.
Meghna, do you want to take this behemoth?
It's a difficult one. And I'm really thinking of how to. So, no, I feel like, equity is a very, very difficult one to say that, okay, it's going to be policy driven alone. Because what is equity for one person would not be for another. And it's really about actually constantly and consistently listening and being able to react to that. So I think where equality is definitely can be definitely policy driven, equity is really about keeping options open, staying agile, and actually continuously listening and building for. Now, that doesn't mean that you change your policies for everything and constantly staying equitable. That also doesn't mean that it is only on the onus of a manager or a leader to enable equity. It is, it is also something where, especially when we're talking about women, I think we do, I would say that, I would also say that you have to see what is equity and what is deprioritizing what's important at work. So I could say that, hey, for the next 2 weeks, I'd find it very difficult to run my usual, length of work because of XYZ reason. But if I say that, hey, I can only work 6 hours a day, and that's it. I can't do more, but you better, keep me on track for my promotions or stuff like that. That's unfair. So I think it's a fine line between the two things. That's one thing I want to say, but I do feel that equity is something that it permeates through every level, and it really needs to be where if you see a peer who needs a special assistance, you help amplify their voice. If you see your reportee where they need some assistance, you help towards that, or you shine a light on that. Or if as a leader you see that there is something which I can do which is systemic that can help towards that, you do that. So you can actually effect change at all levels when you're talking about being truly equitable.
I think I mostly agree with Meghna. And just to point out, I think sometimes equity is also experience driven. You have to, while equality would be very, what's written in kind of the rule book and the playbook, equity is sometimes experience driven and testing out a couple of theories and seeing what's working for your crowd, for your workforce. And I do believe it is, like Meghna said, it permutates through every kind of person. But I do feel organizations where the leaders are truly invested, there's a different sense of belonging, because even the managers, even the colleagues, it'll trickle down. At some point, we do have to agree that we do come from ladder up kind of organizations. So if there are leaders who are genuinely interested in creating an equitable workplace, I think it flows down stronger.
Right. Thank you. I have a different question. I think at some point we discussed confidence, and I think Meghna, in a lot of our insights and the research that we've conducted at Harappa, we've seen that women move across the horizontal level, and the vertical shift, the percentage of women actually making that vertical shift is lower. We've also had some really interesting data on confidence and, women asking for promotions or salary hike. You know, how do you see, these different things correlate, and, what are some of the things that, we can do, or we can practice on a daily basis to build our confidence and, have a voice be heard more for the betterment of the organization or the business goals?
No, I think to be very honest, confidence in self and your own set of skills. And I don't just mean skills such as just the social behavioral cognitive skills that are we at Harappa. I also mean technical skills, having your confidence in your technical or foundational skills, having that confidence and then voicing it is a two-step process, and you need to go through both those things. And to me, I think it was a very pivotal moment in my career when I started to own that confidence and say that, yeah, I could probably do this. And, if I can't, I'll ask for help. So I think that really changed the way I started looking at myself and the job at hand, wherever that came up. So it kind of gave me the luxury to pick my hand up and say, this looks interesting. This mostly seems in line with what I want to do and the kind of skills I can bring to the table. Let me do it. So I think, and if I could just say that movement that happened for me came very late in my career. And I would say that this very deliberate way of skilling yourself is one way of sort of maybe shortening that timeline for this group. And I would really, really recommend, while you're going through, these very, very, great modules around leadership, around data, around, finance and so forth, keep doing it to the extent where you start feeling like this is something that I can apply in the real world in a working environment. And promise to yourself or to your, to the effort that you're making right now, to that network that you're building right now, make that promise to yourself that I'm going to start using it now. I'm not going to say I'm going to wait till I get better and then do it. I'm going to start using it now. I say this a lot to a lot of people in my network, which is it's okay to do something badly the first time, but do it. And then the next time, and then the next time, you'll only get better because, of course, you're smart, you're skilled, and you are practicing with each time that you do it. So I would say confidence doesn't only come from doing stuff well, it comes from doing stuff. So that's what I would say is very interesting.
Absolutely agree with Meghna. It's not about soft skills, it's also about learning the core of what you're interested in, be it product, data, marketing. The one thing that stood out for me when all of you were talking about this is this phrase that it's become a catchphrase that a lot of people use it, called fake it till you make it. I've always detested it. I don't know why. I've always thought it really categorizes the people who use it as oh, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to still do it because, oh, I don't know any better. I'm sorry, I think in today's day and age, the kind of data that you have out, how accessible things are, courses like this available at your fingertips, I think it's very, very, very necessary to keep yourself informed and upskilled in the right way. And keep trying out new things, right? And that's what even Meghna said, that even if you're taking a risk, and even no product is ever 100% ready, if you think about it, but they push the product out. So it gets tested in the market, because then it's a first mover advantage. If you sit on it for so long and stew on it, if Uber kept going, oh, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, then Ola would not have been a copycat. Ola would have been the Uber. Do you know what I mean? Like at some point you have to go and get yourself out there and do these things and learn it the right way and accept it that you may fail a few times, but you know the stuff. And I think really just moving away from that mindset of I'm faking it. No, you know some things, you've learned some things and you've accepted it and you agree to it and you're putting it out there in the world, and there's enough and more to learn from, I think.
Absolutely. I think I remember having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I think you know, like based on her experience, we were discussing that women often shy away from sharing their successes, and putting it out on social media when it comes to work. A lot of her colleagues and a lot of my friends, that I've discussed this with, even myself, we tend to work silently, and we tend to portray ourselves as hard workers, but we've seen a lot of the male counterparts actually, go out there and present themselves. Um, so how can, like what would help, people or women to actually break that barrier and build that confidence to, push ourselves and learn, but also at the same time, showcase work, with that right authenticity when required in the workplace.
I think it again comes down to having pride in what you're doing. If you're working hard, then obviously you have pride in what you've put into it. And then if you're proud of it, then you need to talk about it. And I think it also comes down to discipline. It's hard work to actually put yourself out there and say, here are the 3 things that I've done this quarter. And here are the, here's the lesson I learned this past month. And I don't even mean, one thing is to put it on LinkedIn or social media, but the other thing is to actually talk about it within your networks, for you to distill it, for you to think about it and then articulate it out there. That's hard work. And that's practice. So I think you need to do that as well. Other than just keep doing the projects that you're doing, are you keeping track of what all you're working on? Are you quantifying the effort that went into project management of that whole big task that you did? Do that, and then then you will find it easier to let it come out and speak about it. If it just seems like this big cloud of work, you don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, backing anything up with data just makes it so much more confident and authentic. I did XYZ versus I did XYZ that led to this much percentage of this much. It just authenticates everything that you're doing. And a lot of us in the day-to-day struggle don't. So thanks, Meghna, for even, I feel like that's something even probably I should think about by the end of 31st March coming in. And I think the other thing with confidence is, give yourself time also. I don't think in your early 20s and, yes, of course, you can be confident, but at the same time, you've just joined the workforce. You're probably running around like a headless chicken at times. I think just give yourself some time to also acclimatize yourself to being a working professional. The more, just put in the kind of work and have the right people to look up to, and it will slowly and surely happen. Nobody is born with that authentic, like, oh my God, I'm awesome. Some people are, but most of us don't even appreciate those kind of people, right? You can only be confident about yourself truly when you've achieved something, right? When you know you're good at something, when you've done something, and it could be small or big. I'm not saying you have to be a Fortune 500 CEO, but you will become confident with a skill that's uniquely yours when you've used it, when you've utilized it, when you finally realize that, oh, I'm good at communication, or oh, data is my thing, or give me an Excel sheet, I'm great at it. You will automatically become confident at it. So just keep working, trying different things, and I think a lot of things kind of start making sense with age. I'm sounding very old saying this, but it's true, they actually do.
Thanks, Divya, Meghna. Any book references, any recommendations of books on women leaders, or toolkits that can be helpful? And maybe Meghna, if you'd also like to talk about the reports we publish at Harappa.
Yeah, I mean, see, we on the Harappa handle, you can, I think, get access to a few of those reports, or even on our website under resources. And we do kind of look at various different career cusps. So we have reports around very young professionals, around around managers, and some around leadership, women in particular as well. As far as book references are concerned, I I mostly read fiction, but I do have one or two books that I can say. I think I really enjoyed Indra Nooyi's biography because she does talk about the straddling of home and work at a very, in a very high stakes sort of situation, which really resonated for me. I'm not a CEO or anything like that, but I do see that I have two different personas, one for work and one for home. And I do feel I mask off and mask on between the two, my two realities. But I also see myself getting better at it on every single day. That too is one that gives me a lot of confidence. And the other one, just recently, I discovered this book. There is a version for young girls, and there is a version for women. It's called The Confidence Code. And I think that is a very interesting, since we spoke so much about confidence, I think that would be a good one for me to recommend.
I think the book that I recently picked up, and I read a lot of these books, self-help, or whatever you want to call them. It's a book called by Payal Kadakia. She's a CEO of ClassPass in the States. Absolutely brilliant. She was an Asian woman who became a CEO of a listed company now. And, she was actually a Bharatnatyam trained dancer. And a lot of people said nothing can come out of it. And then she, started ClassPass, which was bringing together different activities and entities and sports and yoga and everything and finding one app for it. So if you're, say, in San Francisco and you type a yoga class, it'll show you all the studios that are giving you one rather than buying one gym membership, which was a very classic case back in the day, right? That's your gym and whatever happens in that gym happens there, but you can't have access to everything. I think it's a fantastic book. And I think this is not a book, but it's actually a TED talk, which was even given to all of us at Harappa, and it's always on my desk, is that we should all be feminists. I don't know if you can, because of the background, but definitely pick up, we should all be feminists, or see the TED talk. And I think just surround yourself with powerful women, right? Follow them on Twitter, follow them on LinkedIn. There are plenty of them going around, by Vani Kohli, the managing director of Kalari Capital, or Arundhati Bhattacharya, the CEO of Salesforce. I think you'll be surprised at how much you just learn from their day to day. You don't need to read a book cover to cover, but you just need to follow the right podcasts, be it Meghan Markle's new podcast or Michelle Obama's, or kind of just have these women around you. You'll be surprised at the amount of confidence they bring in you. Reshma Sajani is another absolutely epic woman, and she writes about very strong things on LinkedIn. One of her talks even went viral, a clip where she was like, I like to talk and I don't need help on, becoming who I am today. So I think just surround yourself with these kind of people. Honestly, if you have nowhere to start, just say top 20 CEOs or whatever is of interest to you. If it's corporate, be it CEOs, if it's anything else in the arts or field, and just surround yourself with these women. As Meghna said, that it makes a huge difference if you see these women leading, if you are around these kind of women, if you are that mother or that sister or that daughter. I wasn't brought up with authentically classic female role models. Mostly everyone around me and my family have been homemakers, and we come from a very traditional setup where the man is in control of the money and goes to office and comes back. So I think when I changed that narrative about myself is when I realized the person I want to be today.
Thanks, Divya. I have a different question. Divya, you have specialized in law, and from there you've made a transition into a career, which is in teaching, learning, and development, communications. And Meghna, you've also had a very interesting transition over the years, and you're also doing some really great work with data, and reports, which have actually helped Harappa launch some really successful programs. What, in your opinion, is a definition of a career pivot? And how does the AMP program really, help participants, find their potential, and really understand a career pivot through this 6-month live online learning journey?
Divya, want to go first?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and I'll make this quick, is there was no right time. I think I got really good at being a corporate lawyer. I was doing due diligences at the back of my hand, and I was like, I know this agreement. Some point I got too comfortable. I was like, what next? What next? I was kind of itching. And that's when I decided to upskill myself and try a different thing and launch a startup, and I did a coaching program as well where I became a life career coach. And I think that's what the AMP beautifully will weave in, right? You don't need to leave your job for so long. It's online, it's accessible, it's there. I think at some point when you're getting too comfortable at your job, or you're suddenly like, oh, I know this, try and upskill yourself, try and learn something new, and maybe a pivot will happen, or maybe you'll just become better at what you're supposed to do. But nobody, I don't think anyone plans for a pivot as such. I was 12 years old when I decided to be a lawyer. I always thought I'll be a lawyer. I think at some point I got a little sick of the industry and not having enough female role models. And I just got quite good at what I was doing, and I kept questioning myself on what next. And that's how I landed where I am.
I think pivots in a career, they're inevitable now, so you may plan it, or it may get forced on you, or it may happen and you just realize, oh, I'm doing something very different from what I started out to do. Sometimes even JDs are very different from the actual job that you do. So that itself is a pivot, right? But they are inevitable, especially when you're having long careers that are, 40, 50 years long. Can you imagine doing the same job for that many years? It would drive anyone crazy. We're in the Instagram and the TikTok phase now, so we need to sort of understand that. So I think the skills that are required for that is constantly questioning, critical thinking for yourself, having a point of view. So informing yourself and then having a point of view. Of course, working on constantly upgrading your skills around communication. How do you collaborate? How do you identify opportunities? Those would be really important. And I do want to say one thing, that I think people who would be joining the AMP would have a pretty clear idea of how and where they want to pivot. Most of them, they're ambitious enough to come and do a program like this. They probably have some ideas on what they want to do. So my advice to them would be, actually start testing out your hypothesis that, hey, I want to move from marketing to product management or product, whatever. I want to get into data. Am I the right fit for it? Do I have the affinity for it? Will it hold my interest for at least the next 5-7 years? And will I grow in it? So it's that you test out those, and that is again the beauty of the AMP. It exposes you to so many different possibilities that test out that hypothesis for all of those situations, and then see where are you best suited and where will your skill set actually take you the furthest. With again, the pitfall with a pivot is that you shouldn't land up with yourself on a back foot. You shouldn't say, oh, because I'm taking this pivot, I'll have to take a pay cut, or I'll have to take a title, downgrade. You should be in a position of strength. Say, here are the skills that I bring to the table. Here's what I bring to the table, a unique perspective. And here is what I get for it in return outside of money. I'm also going to be learning these new things, and I'll be getting exposure to a new industry or to a new job role, or so on and so forth. So it should be, again, something that you are gaining from and they are gaining from you as well.
Thanks, Meghna, Divya. So I think I'll take a little bit time to talk about the AMP. We spoke about networking, we spoke about the content and the faculty we bring in, but other than this, we have three really different things that stand out from a traditional MBA or other alternative MBA programs. I think the first one is an opportunity to learn with a career coach. We spoke about career discovery, and we spoke about coaching as a method to actually articulating it and discovering your next your what next question. And I think that's something that the AMP offers for all the participants. That personalized one-on-one conversation is something that we've seen work out really well for our participants. The second one is, these different projects and assignments that allows the groups to really apply what they've learned. I think, again, online learning, the traditional online learning courses, asynchronous courses, don't bring that opportunity for learners to really apply what they've learned and, get that aha moment of really engaging in rich discussions. And I think that's something that we've seen work out really well for our participants, as well as get feedback from faculty, through these different presentations that they do. So it really helps learners build their confidence and really, become better in their own presentations in the current workplace. And I think third is, and this is something which is very, personal to me as well, something that I've really enjoyed is leadership classes. I think at Harappa, we're really focus towards building thrive skills. I think Meghna, you spoke about critical thinking, you spoke about, team leadership, you spoke about understanding self, building oneself. I think that's something that is core for Harappa and Harappa School of Leadership. Right. I think there are structured, guided master classes, on communication, on, understanding teams, and giving and receiving feedback, something that nobody teaches us. Even in a workplace, we have to sometimes figure it out on our own, or even in a traditional B school, nobody teaches us because that's not the focus. A lot of times, like B school is just focused towards getting a better job, right? But there's a lot more to learn, to be relevant, to be, to grow in a career. And I think those leadership classes are something that, we've seen actually add a lot of value, not just in Harappa School of Leadership, but this is something that, our B2B partners also, come to us for. And I think we've done this while working with more than 700,000 learners across our B2B clients. So I think these are three things that really, stand out. We are also having a webinar tomorrow, directly with the Dean, Dr. Pramod Sinha. And do join us for the webinar, where you'll get to hear more about his vision for the accelerated management program. And, what are we looking for in candidates? Is this the right program for you? And you'll get to learn a lot more on, what is the kind of questions you should be asking yourself, whether you want to go for a full-time MBA or, do a part-time program along with your current work. And, tomorrow's conversation webinar will definitely help you make that decision, faster, and you'll get more clarity. So do join us for the webinar tomorrow. Meghna, Divya, thank you so much for doing this today. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, thanks a lot. I think it's a little 4 minutes over our time, but yeah, I hope this can help some people make some choices.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Meghna.